plant is called sulfur flower. It is in the Arieogonum family. This is a large group of plants that are many of which are native to our state. This particular one is called Canna Creek. The flowers are this bright chartreuse color in the summer, and then they change gradually into this orange rusty color, which is very nice with some of our sandstone pavers that folks have in their gardens. The leaves, as you can see, form a kind of green mat along the ground. A very nice water-wise plant. This plant is Firewitch dianthus. The dianthus family is a very large family of plants. This particular one is reported to be more water conserving than others. This particular one is called Tiny Rubies. It's another tough little customer, and you can see it works really well between paving stones. This plant is one of the penstemons. It's Penstemon pinifolus, or pine leaf penstemon. As you can see, it has this bright red-orange color. It's fairly short. The penstemon family is a very large group of plants, many of which are native to the western United States and many of which are native to Wyoming. A lot of them are water-wise. This particular one does well in warm locations. You can see it has a kind of shorter stature, where behind it is Penstemon palmeri, this pink plant. That is one of the larger penstemons that you'll find. It has these lovely light pink flowers that give out a slight fragrance. So you can see the penstemon family has a lot of variety into it. And a lot of those plants are very wonderful in our gardens. This red penstemon is called Firecracker penstemon. It can really add a lot of zing to your landscape with its bright red color. It's also very attractive to hummingbirds. The hummingbirds like a lot of the different penstemons with their tubular flowers, but they particularly enjoy the red ones. Here you can see the small lovely blue flowers of Penstemon virens. It is a penstemon that you can see often in between stands of conifer or along the roadsides. It can take a little bit of shade, unlike a lot of the other penstemons in the West, which like full sun. This is one of the new hybrid penstemons that's come out. It's called Red Rocks, and it is a smaller statued penstemon, but has fairly large flowers and this beautiful red-pink color. This plant is Penstemon strictus, or Rocky Mountain penstemon. It's one of our native plants. One of the caveats about this one is that it is very easy to grow. It does very well, but it also likes to reseed. So if you don't want a bunch of little plants, you'll want to come out and deadhead it before it has time to release the seed. This plant is called Catmint. It is a very versatile plant. It has a fairly long blooming period, has these nice purple flowers, well loved by bees, and is fairly drought tolerant. It is now getting towards the end of its blooming season, and once it's done blooming, we'll go ahead and cut it back. In certain locations in the state, you can actually get a little bit of a second round of blooming if you cut back the plants after they're done. This particular variety is called Walker's Low. It reseeds a little bit, but not a whole bunch. And by reseeding, what we mean by that is it produces seed, which then falls on the ground, and some of those seeds will germinate and produce new plants next year. A little bit of reseeding can be nice depending on the plant, but sometimes if you have a lot of reseeding with a plant, you may not like that because you may be doing a lot of pulling out of plants. So you can get around reseeding either by having varieties that don't reseed much, or you can go through and deadhead the plants after they're done blooming. This plant is one of the artemisias. This particular one is called silver brocade. The artemisias are a pretty large group of plants, which include the sagebrush, which you'll see growing on our rangelands. They tend to be pretty drought tolerant. There are a few artemisias that are a little too aggressive for the garden, but this one is pretty well behaved. They are mainly grown for their foliage. The silvery foliage provides a nice contrast to other plants that you'll see in our gardens. This plant is hardy yellow ice plant. Ice plants have a number of different varieties. They all tend to be ground covers that have low stature, and they have these flowers which open up when the sun's shining, and when it gets cloudy they close up. The number of different ice plants do fairly well in our climate. Here you can see the beautiful pink-purple flowers of John Prophet, or it's also called Table Mountain ice plant. It makes a lovely addition to the garden. These pink colored flowers are the highlight of the ice plant called Mesa Verde, which you can see here. All these plants do fairly well in our climate. However, I planted them at another site and they didn't survive the winter, and I suspect that they're probably eaten by rabbits. So if you have rabbits in your garden area, you might want to try one of these plants out and see what happens to it before you invest in a lot of them. But where they do well, they are a really lovely plant.